Aloha. I just wanted to come on and talk about something that can be a little controversial sometimes, and that is salt. So, working in cardiology, I get so many patients who have been told to cut out salt because of their blood pressure, minimize their salt, low sodium diet. I don't know if that sounds familiar. And while this is good because most of the industrialized salt that's out there is not very good for our body. Why is it not good? Well, it's stripped of minerals. Salt is an essential mineral that's found in our body. All of our cells need sodium chloride. But the problem is we're not getting the right salt because most of the salt that we get in our diet is from processed foods. So anything on a shelf that has a shelf life that's not fresh needs to be salted. Just like back in the day when they would catch fish and they would salt the fish because that would preserve it, that would give it a long shelf life. They could eat it months later. Well, that's essentially what we do with our frozen foods, our canned foods, anything in a box that is basically salted to preserve it. And so what's happened is a lot of this salt is stripped of all the essential trace minerals. So salt generally used to be from the ocean. It would dry in the sun and you'd end up with salt crystals. And those salt crystals had all kinds of trace minerals in it, silicon, boron, copper, all these trace minerals that we don't always get in our diet, because if you're generally eating raw foods or plants, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, anything from the ground, very little sodium, natural sodium in it. And so adding in that extra salt is not a big deal. But say you're eating processed foods, fast foods, things from a box, you're microwaving things, and you're not cooking your own food, meaning you're not cooking fruit, your vegetables, things like that. You're going to have a lot of extra sodium in your diet, and that sodium is going to be super low quality. So when I say that salt isn't all bad, I don't mean start eating a bunch of salt, but it's the quality, not the quantity. We tend to just say all salt is bad, cut it out. But really, if you're cutting out processed foods, fast foods, and you're cooking at home, eating salt that one shouldn't be white, that means it's bleached. So salt should kind of have a wet texture to it and not be super white, almost a gray. So the Celtic sea salt is kind of this gray, wet looking salt. And then there's the Himalayan salt, which is that pink kind of rock salt. Those are two really good salts that have all the minerals. Generally, you have to look and make sure there's nothing added. But generally speaking, those are the salts you want to consume. Then beyond the quality, you want to look for salt that is used maybe first thing in the morning with your water, because salt is also electrical. It has a charge in it. So in the morning when we wake up, we could be a little dehydrated. So if you're eating a super clean diet and not having a lot of processed foods, you can add a little pinch up to like half a teaspoon of salt in the morning to your water for hydration, and it will give you that electrical charge that your body needs. So anyhow, those are just some things that I think are valuable in knowing about salt. We tend to either say foods are good or bad, but salt is one of those where, again, really important to know the quality of your salt and cutting out all those processed foods, things with a shelf life that are going to harm your body, because your body is going to be dealing with all those additives rather than having natural salt. So I hope that was helpful. Please leave a comment or any questions further that you might have about salt or anything else. All right, mahalo for listening.